Hey everybody, it's your girl Dominga, and this is another great episode of The Scoop, bite-sized information to keep you in the know. I'm super glad to be here. I'm super glad for you guys watching. It's Black History Month. We've survived 2020. This is our first episode of the year, and I have a great friend here joining us, an awesome individual. Literally, every time she speaks, I have to shush the whole room because I need to hear everything she's saying. Everybody, here we go. Who we are interviewing today, Dr. Rhonda Bullock. Yes.
Yay.
I'm super excited to have you here, Dr. Bullock. And I want to go ahead and start. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your organization.
Yes, well, my name is Ronda Taylor Bullock, and I am the co-founder and lead curator at WeAre. WeAre stands for Working to Extend Anti-Racist Education, and we're a nonprofit organization housed in Durham, and we provide anti-racism trainings for children, families, and educators. We use a three-pronged approach to dismantle systemic racism in education and beyond by offering summer camps for kids in rising first through fifth grade, professional development for educators, and workshops for parents and families. So that's us in a nutshell.
Isn't she great, guys? Absolutely amazing. Um, I've heard, your story, how you were inspired to start We Are. I definitely want to share that with everybody else. Can you give us a little bit about your background story and how you got to build up We Are to what it is now?
Yeah, I will say, so I had left teaching after about 10 years in the classroom. I was a high school English teacher and I entered into a PhD program at UNC Chapel Hill. It was a policy leadership and school improvement program. And this was in the fall of 2014. So at that point, George Zimmerman had been acquitted of murdering Trayvon Martin. At that point, the officer, his name is escaping me, but a white male officer had murdered Mike Brown. And, the Black Lives Matter movement was just starting, and it was just, the country was in racial unrest, similar to where we are right now. And I just remember feeling, you know, what is my role in all of this? Feeling called to do more anti-racism work. And I was having my own racist experiences, being back in a historically white university setting, and just feeling called to do more work in anti-racism spaces and on a much more systematic level. And so at this point, I'm also a mom too. So when I started my PhD program, I was the mother to a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old. So at the same time, I'm wrestling with this idea of I'm raising these two beautiful Black babies in this world that is still hella racist in essence. And so all of these things are happening, and I'm thinking about what can I do with the gifts and talents I've been given to create a more socially just, racially equitable world. Um, I started thinking about, you know, doing work with adults. It feels like it's kind of late to start doing anti-racism work and anti-bias work, although adults have the capabilities to learn and to change and shift and reflect. It's just much harder at that point. The biases that they've built are high and wide, and it's really hard to, even if a person can espouse social justice values, their behaviors, it takes a lot to get them to change their behaviors, and it can be disheartening, and make one feel hopeless. Um, and so I started thinking about, like, we need to do anti-racism work much earlier on. We need to be doing anti-racism work with children. And so I started thinking about, okay, well, what would that look like? And so doing anti-racism summer camps was actually the first part of We Are that came to me, because I wanted to work with children and help children to develop healthy racial identities, help children to better understand race, racism, skin color, activism, before they get too old and before all of these biases are set in. I want to help equip them with ways to fight back um, against all of this messaging that they're receiving, whether it's supporting inferiority or supporting superiority, right? And so, I just started drafting out, well, if you're going to work with children, you need to work with their parents. And if you're going to work with parents, you need to work with educators too. And so this three-pronged idea came together. I reached out to my husband and was like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing. Please support me in the midst of all the other ways that you're supporting me right now. And reached out to like-minded friends and former colleagues who already had a racial justice lens and anti-racism framework to say, hey, I got this idea. Come do this anti-racism work with me. And because of their support and my husband's support and people around me, WeAre came to fruition.
I love it. I love it. It's really inspirational because I myself, my friends, other people I know, were very inspired about events that have occurred in the past, what is like 6 years, and especially as a young person, I'm like, okay, I have everything's happening around me. What can I do? Um, and just hearing how WeAre started, how you see a problem and you knew exactly what that solution would be, I think is absolutely admirable. I'm super excited to be interviewing you today.
Thank you.
Um, Now, for a lot of people, when they hear the word anti-racist, a lot of things come to mind. And I know you were, that's, the language that you use. Can you give us a definition of anti-racist or anti-racism?
Yeah, it's the thoughts, it's the actions, it's the beliefs of people who are working to fight against racism, to fight against racial oppression, whether it's ideologies or individual mistreatment, or whether it's structural. I always like to point out that racism is structural, is rooted in laws and policies. And one of the impacts of structural racism is the individual mistreatment that we get based on skin color, based on religion, based on language, immigration status. But racism is rooted in power and structures. And so anti-racism work is taking action. It is rooted, it is a verb. You have to be doing something to actively fight against these systems of racial harm and racial oppression. And so that's how I would describe anti-racism work.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Now with you, being in education, there's it can be hard for a teacher, especially right now, to even have those conversations with students about what's going on. For instance, we had the insurrection on January 6th. How can teachers, start to discuss these situations, these racial injustices in the classroom? How can they, bring these up to students in a way that students, can learn and understand?
Yeah, well, and I think it looks different at different age levels, right? I believe every age level, starting in pre-K, um, can have these conversations with kids. You just have to be very thoughtful about it. I've told some social studies teachers, like, this is your moment. When the kids are like, why do we have to learn this? Like, connecting this back to what they learn about government and people uh, being, and it's not, this wasn't just a protest, right? This was a protest turned insurrection. This was white supremacy. I do believe that it is important that for us as educators that we use language that is specific and points to exactly what was happening and not try to sugarcoat or whitewash this, right? This wasn't just disgruntled people. These were white supremacists who were using Confederate memorabilia, flags, who brought out a noose and talked about hanging people in government. These were people who were trespassing, destroying federal property, who, you know, violating all of these laws and policies. And this isn't just happened in isolation. So I think part of what it is educators having really frank and honest conversations with kids. One of the ways to start, to be honest, is to ask kids, what do they know and what have they heard? Maybe share a clip that's age appropriate. There's different parts of the video that we saw on that day where a teacher could pull out parts that were appropriate based off of whatever age group they're working with to share with students, and then get their thoughts and opinions. Many students actually may know more than what we think about it because the news is on in their home, so they overhear it, and parents may not think their kids are watching. So some kids may come to the table already with some thoughts and beliefs about what they saw. Some kids may be completely oblivious, right? And I think but for everyone, and from one spectrum to the other, it is important that we talk about this as classroom educators. And I'm going to think about high school students for right now and root this in history. This is not the first time there have been white supremacists or insurrection after elections. I know a lot of people, particularly here in North Carolina, have talked about the Wilmington race riots. I believe that's 1898. Don't quote me on that. But after Black leadership won in different positions of power and had built, you know, clout in the community, running newspapers, owning businesses, holding certain positions in government, white people revolted and resulted in murder and burning things down and destroying property, so much so that they were able to take back control of leadership in Wilmington. So this is not an isolated incident. It's very important that we situate this singular moment and zoom out and see how it fits in history, right? And so I think if we want children, we want to live in a society that is racially just, that is inclusive, that is anti-racist, it is important that we as educators create spaces for kids to talk about this, and also to be, sometimes we have to educate and call it what it is, right? This is white supremacy that just happened here, and this is wrong. And so now what do you do about it? I also think it's important to check in with children regardless of the age to see how are you feeling, because not only did many witness that, we're also in the midst of a pandemic. We're in the midst of many families struggling. We're in the midst of people losing family members, right? And so emotionally, then to get to that, what happened January 6th, it is a lot for kids to process. It's a lot for us as adults. And so I don't want us to come in just in this heady space of academia and academics, but move it from here to the heart, and check in with kids. How are you? Hearing about this, how do you feel? What are your emotions? Right? And then respect the kids wherever they are. They might be angry, they might be sad, they might be upset, they might want to tear something up. And then kind of talk them through that. And what does that mean? And I'm always one to recommend, like, if you see a child who might need additional supports, you know, asking them how they feel about talking to a school counselor, or going to the counselor as a group of students to help process their feelings. And I think that in the midst of this being a teachable moment, we can't overlook the social emotional needs of children as well.
Thank you so much for that. I literally just want to just keep hearing you talk. Like that's all I need, honestly. Um, I think that's amazing. And one point you brought up, so it's all you also brought up the fact that, parents, should talk to their kids at home. Well, should they start those conversations in the same way?
I would say yes. And I think sometimes we as parents make the mistake of thinking that we have to have all the answers and all the information, and then we just come in and we tell it to our child. And I think what we as parents can do, because now I'm now the mother of a soon to be 10-year-old and now a 6-year-old, and it's a matter of like inviting them into a conversation. It's not a lecture. It should not be one-sided. Show, as parents, we need to show our vulnerability too. And if we're upset, say that we're upset. If we're sad, say that we're sad. But also asking kids, like, something happened January 6th in our country. Did you hear about it? What are your thoughts? And again, asking probing questions to invite them in. Again, some kids are going to be like, yeah, I saw the news and I said, blah, 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 whatever it is that they want to share, or they heard people talking about it in class, in the Zoom chat, or you know, and again, some kids may not be completely oblivious, and so we just have to be thoughtful about where children are coming from. And I would tell parents, like, you know, your own child and what they're able to handle, because there's no panacea answer for us as parents. We have to check in and know who your child is and what they can handle. And if they know, if they were knowledgeable about the events of January 6th, and just asking and hearing what they say, and then sharing your own thoughts and opinions. If they don't know, again, I'd recommend same things I would recommend to a teacher, having some type of as a teacher, we call it like a centerpiece text, but something to ground the conversation in, so your kids aren't like, wait, where are you coming from? Why are we talking about this? Right. um, but having, it might be an image, it might be a short video clip, but again, it needs to be age appropriate based off of your child, what you're showing them. So for example, the video where the officer was trapped in between the door and his body was being crushed and he was screaming out, like, that's not something I'd probably share with my 9-year-old. But some of the other images that and still shots, I pulled those. We looked at some together and we watched news a little bit, and talked about those. Right. So you have to, again, know your child, what they can handle, and just be thoughtful about what you're showing them. But you can still have an honest conversation with them. And after you talk about it, ask them how they feel. What are they thinking? Allow them to ask you questions. Like, ask your kid, do you have questions for me? Like, is there anything you want me to try to answer? And if, as parents, if we don't have the answer, it's okay to say, I don't know, baby. I don't know. Let's go find it together. Let's go research together. And then both of you can get to the computer, and your child can probably look up some things, and y'all look up things together to try to better understand what happened there. But allow our children to ask us questions too. And again, if you don't know the answer, don't make it up. This last administration, I feel, has exemplified why we should not be making things up when we don't have answers, because it's like, it is funny, right? But like, and it is dangerous. And so if we don't know, then we go together and we try to find out, right? And we can model that for our kids and model that vulnerability. Like, I don't have the answer either, and we're gonna learn together. And I think that creates a great relationship builder between a parent or caregiver and a child.
Awesome. Awesome. I think the open communication is really important, and especially giving kids that power to be able to be open and talk about their feelings when they may feel like, I don't know if this might be an adult conversation or a grown conversation. So my parent won't allow me to speak on this. So I really, I love the fact that you're, promoting this open communication. Um, and even I think about it myself, people ask me, where were you September 11th? And, well, we're going to have a whole new generation. Where were you January 6th?
Right.
Well, I do want to turn this conversation around a little bit more to WeAre. What's going on with WeAre? I know the work you do is absolutely amazing in the community of Durham, and especially beyond that. So what is WeAre working on right now?
So WeAre is doing all the things. um, we just hired, starting the hiring process last August, but we have now hired 3 new full-time employees to join me in the office to do this behind the scenes work. And I could not have been happier with the 3 folks that our board hired and chose and selected to work with us. We have a new children and families program coordinator, Bree Starks, and we have a new educator programs coordinator, Dr. Sarajane Davis, and we have a program administrator, Sierra Gibbs. And so each of them is going to help us develop these different arms of the organization. And so we were able to do a lot with just one full-time employee. And so now a lot of the load that I was carrying, we're passing it off to now these different segmented areas. And then they're going to go further and deeper with it in ways that I could not as one person who is in the office doing the work. But their ideas, the way they're going to be connecting with educators, connecting with parents and families, building more connections. Like right now we have a strong hold with our elementary students because we do our summer camps. But we don't have as much programming for middle and high school students, and the community is asking for that, especially for middle school, because middle school is a pivotal moment for kids where their ability to understand what's going on around them and then to be able to recognize their own racialized experiences are heightened in middle school. And
100%.
so parents are like, but when you come into middle school, though, is there going to be a middle school summer camp? And I'm like, whoa, that felt like a lot right now. We got to, now that we have people where that's their job to think through what middle school engagement looks like I cannot wait. Bree is working on that right now, thinking about what middle school engagement will look like, what high school engagement will look like. And I'm excited. And it's not going to be the same as what we do for elementary kids, but the camp is going to be a little elevated and a little different. But she's working on that scope and sequence in that area. And I'm excited about it. Something else that I'm really, really, really excited about, because for years people have asked me, like, when are you doing middle school? When are you doing middle school? And I'm like, to be honest, our next focus area is pre-K. We have received some funding. We're working on additional funding to draft and pilot a pre-K play-based anti-racism curriculum. And I'm really excited about that because I want us to start at the baseline, at the foundation. Like, pre-K educators are so important, and they're undervalued and oftentimes dismissed for what they contribute to the educational foundation of our children. And like, they are some of the, all educators are important at every level, right? But I think we need to heighten how we value what pre-K educators bring to the table, and they can be so instrumental in building a strong foundation for kids as we're thinking about healthy racial identity development and construction, and develop an anti-racism lens and framework from jump. Right. And so I'm I'm excited about all the things that WeAre is doing, but I cannot wait till we get our team assembled to do this pre-K play-based anti-racism curriculum so that we can then pilot it in some pre-K centers, get feedback, go back to the table, rework some things, and come back. We're partnering with Farm to Early Care and Education out of NC State, because I've been working with them for the past 2 years on doing food justice work, and then infusing an anti-racism lens to that. And so we want this pre-K play-based curriculum to involve food, and helping kids understand their identity connected to food. And it's going to be so dope. Like, I'm just really excited about it.
I want to be a pre-K student so I can take advantage of this. That sounds so amazing. And especially touching students while they're young. That's just really, really important. My question for you, Dr. Bullock, if people are interested in getting involved with WeAre, with what you have going on, do you have the ability for people to receive services streamed due to COVID?
Yes, we do. So we last spring, it's crazy, it's almost a year ago already. We I started thinking about, well, we don't do anti-racism work through a computer, so I guess we're just going to spend this year working, dreaming, planning, and people were canceling, their workshops. And so we had one school who reached out, and I was like, so we're going to cancel, right? And they were like, no, we don't want to cancel. We want you to come and give the presentation through Zoom. And I was kind of like, this is cheaping the experience. We trying to build relationships. We got to see everybody's body. You got to embody and all this stuff. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. But they wanted to. I said, okay. And I went and did it. And I was like, wait, actually, this worked out really well. There's different ways to connect with people that you didn't connect in person. I felt like more people were participating via Zoom than normally would in a live in-person session. And there was gifts to doing it that way. And I don't think we lost anything as far as implementing the workshop with fidelity. It didn't feel like we lost anything. And so we've been rocking and rolling. We've been zooming in and out all over the world, not all over the world, but we have had people, we've been in Durham, but we have had people zooming in from the UK, a lot of West Coast representation in some of our events, a lot of folks up north. And so that's a benefit actually to Zoom, that you're not having to drive and spend all this money and food and travel and hotels, and you can still get the benefit of participating in a workshop, and it is valuable. And so that's so people can still attend our events. We're doing them virtually. We have some coming up this summer that we're thinking that we're hoping that we can host in person. But even after we open back up, we're going to keep virtual PD as an option, because we have had so much success with it.
Awesome. I'm super, super glad that you've been able to be successful with that. Especially in a time, COVID with everything going on. I know I'm probably in like 3 Zoom meetings a day. So it's become the new thing. This is really, really great information. So for people that want more information about WeAre and also to see, what services you have, where can they go to get that information?
Yes, please visit us at www.weare-nc.org. You go to our website, you can find ways if you want to be a financial contributor to us as a nonprofit organization, and you can also find out about our upcoming events. So for example, I failed to mention we're having our fifth-ish annual Let's Talk Racism conference. The theme this year is becoming anti-racist educators. I call it the fifth-ish because last year was technically the fifth, but we had to postpone due to COVID. And so we're just bringing it back around, the same theme, same keynote speaker. That will be March 19th through the 20th. Registration is open on our website. It will be a virtual event. And then we have, other events coming up later on in the year. So camp registration will be going live February 1, hopefully. And we're planning to be in person with our summer events this year, but we're staying flexible, keeping in mind that it might have to be virtual again.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, if you are in North Carolina in the Triangle Triad area, if you're interested in getting services from WeAre, you already know where to go. And if you're not in the Triangle Triad area,
Exactly.
definitely go to the website, see how you can contribute, see how you can help out, or see how you can get these services for your staff, for your school, for your kids. It's so important, especially in the times that we are in right now. Um, Dr. Ronda Bullock, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's been amazing to be able to see your organization grow and reach so many more people. What you're doing, it's needed. It's needed. You're very inspiring to me. I know you inspire other people. So thank you so much for that. And this is another episode of The Scoop. Thank you so much for everybody that's been watching, and you have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Dominga. I appreciate it.
Thanks.